Sounds like I've said this story before. Another corruption bombshell dropped on Albany. Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos and his son Adam surrendering to the FBI this morning. U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara announced the charges during a news conference this afternoon.
Senator Skelos and Adam Skelos worked as a team to illegally monetize the senator's power and influence to take care of Adam's financial needs.
Prosecutors say Skelos used his position and influence to line his son Adam's pockets. They're facing 6 federal corruption charges. You can see them listed right there on the screen. Prosecutors say Skelos arranged for Adam to collect regular paydays from companies that got favorable treatment from his father. Skelos is also accused of supporting certain infrastructure projects that would help his son's bank account, but not necessarily help taxpayers in his Long Island district. Now, none of this, of course, is happening in a vacuum. Andrew Cuomo wrote into the governor's mansion saying he would drain the swamp, I'm quoting, of the corruption in Albany. That swamp, it is pretty deep. Now, not counting Skelos, 4 recent leaders in Albany, they've been indicted or convicted all of corruption. I'm talking about Pedro Espada, Andrew's favorite guy, Malcolm Smith, Joe Bruno, Shelley Silver. And don't forget, Carl Hastie, the guy who replaced Silver, remember the reformer? He's looking a bit ethically challenged, having allegedly profited from his mother's embezzlement to the tune of $200 grand. Not yet facing charges, but this is bringing even more ethics questions to a place that already has its fill. Governor Cuomo, as we know, he tried to tackle the corruption epidemic in Albany. He even formed that Moreland Commission, if you remember, in 2013. But he disbanded it only a year later, and just a few months later, Shelley Silver arrested, stepping down from his leadership position as Speaker of the Assembly. Now, hearing all this, nobody's surprised that New York was just voted the most corrupt state in a poll by Monmouth University. Andrew, the thing is, there is a lot of rumbling off record here that there could be a lot more shoes to drop. But if you think about it, you gave a number today. You got to go back to what, 94?
Every person who has led either the Assembly or the State Senate since 1994 has ended up being indicted and having to leave their position with one exception, and that's that's Klein, who filled in on an every other day basis in the deal that he had with Dean Skelos. But everybody else, only one leader of the Assembly, that was Sheldon Silver. He was arrested and he had to give up his position. And everybody who's been the Senate leader since 1994 also arrested.
It's got a familiar ring to it, Jeannie, right? Which is this part-time job becomes a full-time responsibility, meaning the legislature. And when you're in there, the only commodity you can trade on, since we pay them, yes, we pay them a decent number, but not what turns out to be really a full-time salary. That's not how it was designed. Their outside job, which obviously they can provide access and cachet or influence with their Albany job, somehow they get conflated and somehow problems arise out of this. It's just, you don't get shocked anymore.
No, and I think that's the real problem, right? If you say to somebody on the street, oh, look at the Senate Majority Leader was indicted today.
I thought he already was.
Yawn, yeah. Who? Oh, I thought he was. As Andrew mentioned, the last, how many of them have been indicted? It's nothing new.
4 or 5?
Yeah, 4 or 5. I mean, it's absolutely shocking when you think of it. And this hasn't even been really, huge news. We knew it was coming. He and his son are indicted, and he's not resigned his post yet. He'll probably stay in the Senate, may resign, may not. And yet, Albany will continue the way it is, and I think that's the real issue.
And I could have thrown down in there governors, I could have thrown in controllers, I could have given a line.
But that's the real issue. There has been no substantive change in the way that Albany works. You're putting new people in, as Andrew mentioned. They're all ending up in the same relative position, and the cycle continues. At what point are we going to have change? And that's what people elected Governor Cuomo for, yet he disbands the Moreland Commission, and here we are today in the same position.
And Dom, whether it's fair or not, New Yorkers aren't buying here that those reforms that were recently passed, we're going to shut down the government, are going to make really a hill of beans of a difference here. At the end of the day, they don't really think anything's changed. Whether that's fair or not, that's the overwhelming perception.
Richard, I just want to go back to your first point. Here's a prediction here. You could pay some of these people 4 full-time salaries, and these crooks will still find a way.
But not if you don't let them have a second job. Not if you don't let him be a lawyer on the
But,
side.
okay,
Not if you don't let him.
But Skelos didn't have a second job. This isn't money through
Okay,
Skelos'
okay, so I'm
second
the elected
job.
official. You block me, I can't do anything. Listen, hire my wife. Listen, hire my son. Listen, hire my daughter. Look at Skelos' case. And look at the complaint here. An allegation. And remember just a month ago, Skelos said he didn't believe he was under investigation. Remember that? That was just a month ago. One of the allegations, they not only did they shake down the company, but the payoff wasn't enough. After they were receiving monthly payments, they said, "Oh no." Apparently, the son said, "Oh no. If you don't increase the payments from, I believe, from 4,000 to 10,000, this deal is done." The nerve! The shakedown amount that you agreed to is not enough, and you're renegotiating.
Hey, you got to always negotiate, Calvin. But, we joke, Andrew. There's just this, I honestly would have thought Richard Brodsky, our friend's head might have literally exploded today on the set here if we were coming on. Because
Yes.
where do you go to defend this? How is any of this defensible anymore? All the stuff with Silver, right? Now you've got the head of the state Senate. People are jockeying. The body's not even cold yet. People are jockeying to see who's the next leadership. That's going to be the next story, everyone, as to just how. And then Hasty takes over for Silver. They don't even bother waiting a week to make sure this guy's completely ethically pure. And now the questions over the embezzlement and everything else with the mother and the house and everything else. It's exhausting doing this.
And it makes you lose your faith in government to a certain degree. I've talked plenty with Brodsky. I talked with Richard Ravitch at the seminar on fixing Albany that Brodsky was hosting at NYU last week. And Ravitch said he doesn't think that you need to make Albany full-time jobs because it's designed to be a part-time job. You want doctors and lawyers and people who do landscaping or people who do other jobs in the mix so that you can get a different sense of opinion.
Landscapers are.
Whatever. It was just something I was looking for. And he's not necessarily sure that would curb it, and I'm not so sure that he's wrong. I think Dominic tends to be right, where there are going to be some people who, no matter what you pay, look, Albany for too many people has been like a cash machine that's just spitting out 20s, and it's almost like one of those what would you do specials that you see on TV. Would you actually stop and take the 20 if you know it's not yours? And too many people in Albany do stop and take the 20. But to Brodsky's point, I think there are people who are legitimate public servants who want to do a public good in Albany.
I quote Richard, but the worst part about Albany is the legal stuff that you can do. Now, he loves to bang on it. It's the governor, too. It's not just the legislature. Fine, okay? But it's what access and influence you can buy legally in Albany, and how really three men or women, whatever.
It's not usually women.
Right. The three of them,
Let's be honest.
the people can rotate, but at the end of the day, they pick who gets what and who does whatever. And there's less of us, by the way, covering Albany than there used to be. I mean, that's the scariest part the public doesn't realize. There used to be 15, 20 people covering Albany every day to at least look under the rug for some of the stuff. There's nobody left anymore here. So that's what's going on here.
And I think that's an important point. One possible reform is to make this a full-time job and pay them more. I don't think that that's a panacea, though.
It's a start.
I agree with you. It may be a start, it may be not, but there are plenty of ways to reform Albany that haven't even been tried. You go to Common Cause, you go to any of the good government groups, they will give you a list of 50 ways that you can clean up Albany that have not been done yet. What about enforcement? You look at what the governor and the legislature passed this time around, where they're going to have to disclose. Disclosure is fine, but if you don't have a real enforcement body behind that disclosure means nothing. You can deal with the issue of campaign finance, which is a big issue. Now, I agree, you're going to always have bad apples, but you shouldn't have this many if you have real rules to combat it, and Albany simply does not. That's why we are the most corrupt state in the country.
In Dominic, I don't know how to just put a punctuation on this, but some of the guys in Albany, okay, I think the public gives too much credit. We're not talking sophisticated guys here.
At all.
And that's the most shocking part.
At all.
Right?
I'll put it another way. And family members of my own family, they don't like when I say this. You have poverty pimps that have been elected to Albany, and they're looking to steal every dime. I like the analogy of what, the $20
Coming out of the
ATM?
bank machine, yeah.
They're at the ATM and the 20s are flowing. Literally poverty pimps that have gone to Albany.
And we're not talking some, high tech or coordinated schemes here. Some of this stuff, you could, be a 12-year-old and figure out that the numbers aren't adding up right. I mean, to be fair to you, This is rife for reform, and what they got passed a couple months ago doesn't even come close to getting there. Okay, we're equal opportunists here. We don't just stay in New York. All we got to do is go across the river, because 3 people have been indicted for their role in Bridgegate, and 1 has pled guilty. But Chris Christie denied he knew anything. He's just trying to avoid the whole thing here. But the polls, they're not buying it. And I'm talking about New Jerseyans. And he's still considering a run for the White House. We'll talk about if that campaign's salvageable.